warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, all the participants of Milisi, Millennial Siap Beraksi, the series. And it is the second series within 2022. It is a special one as we, the Southern Sulawesi Custom and Excise Regional Office, collaboratively conduct this event with the University of Melbourne. I am Halim, and Pak Firman will be your moderator for our discussion today. The topic for our discussion today is international tax development. So peeps, please make yourself comfortable and enjoy the discussions. And without further ado, let's start our Milisi today in 3, 2, 1. Okay, how's the jingle? Is everyone happy? Okay, to begin this event, I would like to invite our head of regional office, Pak Nugroho Wahyuwidodo, to formally open this event. Pak Nugroho has been very enthusiastic in human resource development. Thus, we consistently provide series of events to enhance the knowledge of our employees and officers. Nonetheless, he has various and extensive experiences in customs and excise. Pak Nugroho, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Halim and Firman. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Ibu Anita Iskandar, the Director of International Cooperation, Professor Miranda Stewart, Professor William Ho, and Associate Professor Michal Carrington from University of Melbourne, all the Indonesian Custom and Ministry of Finance officer and employees, and also all the participants of this event. It's a great honor for us, Kandil Bia Cukai Sulbaksel, to host Milisi with excellent speaker from abroad. Our platform, Milisi, Millennial Siap Beraksi, translated in English as Millennial Ready for Action, and our Julukana English community are the example of our commitment in providing a knowledge-friendly environment and also the part of the learning organization policy implementation. For the first time since its first edition, Milisi collaborated with academia from abroad. It is a critical step to comprehend and theoretical and practical perspective in range of interesting issues, including what they discussed today regarding international tax development, which has become our part of the job in daily life. It is our wish that this collaboration with the University of Melbourne will be a sustainable program to promote both sides through knowledge sharing. If no, we receive a sharing knowledge from Melbourne, maybe next time we can also promote the role of Indonesian custom to the student of the University of Melbourne. Eventually, I do hope that this event can inspire other units within the Minister of Finance to be more active in doing a collaboration with external unit. We, the Southern Sulawesi Regional Office, will always put the priority in providing a media to collaborate and discuss important issues to inspire and support the Indonesian custom vision to be world-leading custom and excise organization. Thanks Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Nugroho, for your encouraging message. It definitely boosted our mood, inspired us that we have a commitment to provide knowledge and, of course, collaborations with external units. Can you feel now the positive vibes? We have nearly 100 people joining us. So anyway, just last week, Indonesian Customs held 23rd Regional Head of Customs Administrative Conference in Bali. And we have been very active in international forum. So now it is our honor to have the Director of Customs and Excise International Affairs, Bu Anita Iskandar, to share a bit of knowledge regarding the development of Customs and Excise international cooperations. Bu Anita, how are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, great. Glad
thank
to
you,
hear from you. So I'm aware you have a very tight schedule with Anita. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will explain a little bit about an overview of the international cooperation in customs and excise. So distinguished Head of Southern Sulawesi Customs and Excise Regional Office, Pak Nugroho Wahyu Widodo, distinguished Professor Miranda Stewart, and distinguished Professor William Ho, distinguished Dr. Michal Carrington, and all the team from the University of Melbourne, and distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon for everyone. First of all, I sincerely thanks to Pak Nugroho, who has invited me to participate in this important occasion and special occasion. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to join this event and to present about an overview of our international cooperation, especially in Indonesia Customs. During this unprecedented time, the role of customs as a border agency is being emphasized even more, not only boosting economic recovery by providing procedural and fiscal facilities to importer and exporter. Customs also has the responsibility in securing the global supply chain from illegal activities, which take advantage of border vulnerabilities. Safeguarding the revenue collection, protecting community, facilitating legitimate trade, and other activities in customs area are of cross-border nature, which cannot be effectively carried out by a single customs administration on their own. So this requires intense cooperation between neighboring customs administration as well as international cooperation at the global level, either in bilateral cooperation, regional cooperation, and multilateral cooperation. I will touch upon a bilateral cooperation between Indonesia Customs and other custom administration. It usually covers specific area in enforcement and compliance, such as customs mutual administrative assistance, including joint operation, information exchange, and as well as specific program to increase the capacity custom officer. And currently we have around 20 agreement with other border agencies, and we have around 10 agreement ongoing in negotiation. With Australia, we have a very strong bilateral cooperation since 1992, since we signed the cooperative agreement between Custom Administration by the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia and the Minister of Industry, Technology and Trade of Australia. And since this agreement, it was followed up with annual meeting. We call it custom to custom talk meeting. It's from 1993 until now. And currently the cooperation is carried out under the title Australia-Indonesia Strong Border Program, which has been going since 2017. We have so many program of activity. One activities include organizing training and capacity building activity involving DGC official by inviting expert or trainer from Australia, and also currently Australian Border Force planning to provide equipment grants in the form of Celebrate Responder kiosks, and also we have a cooperation in developing DGC K9 unit facility, and there was also dog grants and training given to DGC K9 instructor. And at the regional level, we have cooperation within ASEAN under customs sectoral body under the purview of Director General. And under this sectoral body, we have 2 policy bodies and 3 working groups and 5 sub-working groups. And we have also a program with our dialogue partner. One of that is Australia. And meanwhile, in the global level, the customs community, we have a World Customs Organization as independent intergovernmental body whose mission is to enhance the effectiveness and the efficiency of customs administration by providing leadership, guidance, and support to customs administration. Indonesia has joined the WCO since 1957, quite a long time, and has been active in several committees. And we have also involved in multilateral activities related to economic and trade with WTO, UN, other international organizations, or also cooperation in border enforcement with UNDC or Interpol, also cooperation in transnational crime, and also we have cooperation under APEC, ASEM Fora. And customs also involved in all free trade agreements negotiations, which is we have now 14 FTA implemented and 4 in ratification process and 8 in negotiation process. So currently as Pak Halim said just now, that we organized the 23rd of RHCA, Regional Head of Customs Administration meeting for Asia Pacific, as we are Indonesia Customs role as the WCO Vice Chair of Asia Pacific region for the period 2020 to 2022, which is will last this June. And as the Vice Chair, we are responsible to identify regional priorities in respect of WCO activities and obtaining regional views, and also represent the region in international meeting. We arrange periodic regional meetings to foster WCO activity, and also hold discussions on subjects of common interest to members in the region. And also, Australia will be the next regional vice chair for the period from June 2022 to 2024. So, and we have also in WCO and also in the region to increase the capacity of the human resource. Customs in Asia Pacific has 8 WCO regional training centers, which are in China, Fiji, Hong Kong, China, Indonesia, India, Japan, Korea, and Malaysia. And in the 9th meeting of the head of RTCs, who meets annually, they are exchange view on the how to enhance customs capacity through strengthen professionalism and human resources network, so as to ultimately contribute to custom modernization efforts in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, WCO also have an international platform to foster dialogue between custom administration, academic communities, and private sector. The platform name is PICARD Conference. PICARD stands for Partnership in Customs Academic Research and Development, which was launched in 2006. And for the next conference, 2002, Picard called for paper with subject research mainly related to the data analytics, disruptive technologies, circular economy, and fragile borders, topic that become focus area of WCO in addition to another topic that are the core missions of the custom. There are also international network of customs university, which established in 2005 and has the principal objective to raise the academic standing of the custom profession and then develop customs as a recognized area of academic pursuit. I think currently the member in of INCU in Australia, if I'm not mistaken, is the Center for Customs and Excise Studies at Charles Sturt University. And in Indonesia, we have a State Finance Polytechnic or STAN. Ladies and gentlemen, I will touch upon a bit about customs and tax cooperation. And as we are aware that customs and tax cooperation is not only beneficial in terms of efficient collection of duties and taxes legally due, but also improvement of trade facilitation and business environment, also a simplification of the process for customer and administration, and effective enforcement of financial and tax crime. Taking into account the importance of customs and tax cooperation, WCO has published the guidelines for strengthening cooperation and the exchange of information between customs and tax authorities at national level, which aim to provide a general overarching principle for cooperation, which take account of operational considerations. So in Indonesia, custom and tax cooperation, and also together with the non-tax revenue unit under the Ministry of Finance, we have a joint program consists of joint analysis, joint audit, joint collection, joint investigation, and joint business process, single profile, and also a secondment of employee. So acknowledge of the benefit of this kind of cooperation, the joint program initiative is continued to be conducted and become one of the top priorities under the Ministry of Finance. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we might be aware that we are in the challenging time due to the current global health and geopolitical challenges, which become the major causes of humanitarian and economic crisis, and also a disruption in supply chain. At this background, dialogue between customs and academic community and also private sector become more and more important to support the development of more effective policies to ensure and improve business environment and citizen welfare. So I think I will stop here and
muted, Bu Anita.
Bu Anita, I think you were muted.
Thank you for all participants and also for the speakers for taking your time from your busy schedule to come and contribute to this online discussion. Last but certainly not least, I thank you for Milisi for organizing this event. Congratulations, well done, and wish you all a very successful event and fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bu Anita. a very quite detailed context in a very short time. And it seems the Indonesian Customs has been very active in promoting international cooperations. And I believe it is one of the most important steps to realize the visions of Indonesian Customs to be the world's leading customs and excise organizations. And of course, building a stronger collaboration and cooperations. Pak Firman, as the former employees in international affairs, do you have anything to add or perspectives?
Well, definitely, Halim. I think there has been a fast growth of engagement of Indonesian customs in international cooperation. I think that's amazing. Mantap, Bu Anita, or excellent, Bu Anita.
Okay, now we embark to the main sessions of the event. We have 3 superstars from one of the best universities in Australia, the University of Melbourne. But just before that, let's take a formal photo sessions for all of the participants. The first style, let's make it formal, but try to put your fist in front like these positions, and then show your warmest and your brightest smile. Photographer, are you ready? On 3, 2, 1. Okay, and one more time, freestyle, anything you like, okay? On 3, 2, 1. All right, great. So to begin our main sessions of this event, Pak Firman, would you like to introduce the speakers and then provide leading for the discussions?
Sure, Halim. Without further ado, we have 3 esteemed speakers joining us for today's discussion, and neither of them needs any introduction. So allow me to briefly introduce them to you. First, we have Professor Miranda Stewart. She's the professor of law and director of the tax group at the Melbourne Law School. She's also director of the tax group and is a fellow at the Tax and Transfer Policy Institute at the Crawford School of Public Policy, the Australian National University. Miranda engages in research, policy advice, and teaching across a wide range of topics on taxation. And then we have the second speaker here, Dr. Michal Carrington. She's an associate professor in marketing, program director of the Master of Professional Management. Michal teaches and researches in the areas of marketing. Her research has appeared in various top journals. Michal holds a Bachelor of Engineering with honors in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Melbourne, and a PhD also from the same university. And then the third speaker would be Professor William Ho. He's a professor of Operations and Supply Chain Management, program director for Master of Supply Chain Management. He obtained his Bachelor of Engineering degree with the first class honors in Manufacturing Engineering and PhD in Operations Research from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University in 2000 and 2004, respectively. One thing I would like to highlight here is he has published over 60 articles in a variety of top-tier academic journals with over 9,000 citations of his work and an Hedge Index of 34. He has won several research awards and received 5 large competitive research grants funded by various institutions. Wow, that's very excellent. Well, before the presentation, I will convey the rule of the discussion. For the participants, you have 3 options for the questions. First, you can select raise your hand feature in the Zoom and pose the question directly to speakers. And the other option is putting your question in the chat box and Slido on a link 3. And then we will be reading your questions and give it to the speakers. So to Professor Miranda, letter for the following presentation would be delivered by Dr. Michal and followed by Professor Ho. Professor Miranda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can I confirm you can hear me fine?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm just going to share my screen now and move to the presentation mode. So you should see my slides. You see a photograph of the Melbourne Law School at the University of Melbourne, with the park in front and the city of Melbourne behind. So thank you very much for the invitation to join the seminar this afternoon. It's a great honor, and I would also really like to extend my greetings to our former students, many doing the Master of International Tax with us at the law school at Melbourne University. And even when I was teaching, I sometimes teach at the Australian National University in public policy, and I have also had some graduate students from there who came from the Indonesian Ministry of Finance. So such a pleasure to be talking to you. So what I'm going to do is say a short amount about just a couple of the programs at the law school. I must say I learned a great deal about Indonesia's role for excise and customs, and I agree it's wonderful to hear how strong the relationship is with Australia in customs and excise, as well as in international tax, I think. It's really good to see that level of cooperation. And I should also congratulate Indonesia on your currently being activity as chair of the G20. And also your active role in ASEAN, right, which of course is important for both trade and tax. So a few brief things about studying at the law school. So we have a number of graduate degrees, master's degrees, graduate diplomas, even specialist certificate or single subjects. We claim to be a top school, as kindly introduced, top law school in Australia and in the region. The master's degree is very broad across a whole range of areas of law, many internationally oriented subjects that may be of relevance, wide range of specialist degrees. Now, to do an LLM, Master of Laws, people need to have a prior law degree. However, we teach many people who have other prior study, not just law, depending on the specialization. So, for example, accounting, specialist tax studies, management studies in government, and so on, then you may be able to do a specialist master's or graduate diploma degree at the law school. So don't, if you're interested, don't let it put you off that it's a law degree. Depends on what you're doing, what your professional career is, and your background study. In tax, we have a large tax program. I have to confess, it's mostly focused on income taxes, not so much on excise and customs. But I am very interested to learn about the work that you're doing in the Ministry of Finance in excise and customs. And I'd like to say that if there is interest in the ministry for further study on, for example, the intersection of tax and trade, we would be happy to talk to you, right? So one of the things we pride ourselves on in the master's degree is that flexibility and innovation. So each year we usually have a couple of new subjects that are very topical, relevant, as well as the traditional ones. So as I said, many students, especially from Director General of Taxes in the past. So just to give you a sample of some of the kinds of subjects we cover in the Master of International Tax, I've given a list on the slide and happy to circulate the slides later. And then I thought I might also highlight some of the trade subjects that are in the master's degree that might also be relevant for your department. I can see digital trade, international trade law, financial and investment. Again, I think if there is an interest in customs law, that this may be something that could be developed. So let me proceed to like a more substantive, very short talk or short taste of some of the topical issues that we are covering at the moment in the area of international tax in the program. And in particular, I guess we are dealing in corporate international tax and in international sales tax on some of the same issues that you are dealing with in customs and excise. We are dealing with the digitalized economy, with the increased number of global and digital transactions, and with identifying the value of trade in digital goods, taxation of digital goods, as well as increased volumes of cross-border trade in general, right, and cross-border investment. So these are important drivers in terms of international tax law. We also are conscious of the need to think about the total level of taxation in different countries. And some countries are keen to raise their tax levels. Post-COVID, all countries are concerned about the fiscal balance. And so excise and customs, of course, important part of the base, but perhaps increasingly shifting the revenue raising function in the base to the sales tax, more generally VAT, goods and services tax, or to income taxes. And you can see that in the region, Australia, relatively high tax levels, and Indonesia, relatively low tax levels in the region when we look as a whole. But there is a lot of variation, of course, between countries. Okay, so we have this context of the global digital economy. So trade, capital flows, investment flows, people flows, right? Migration, and of course, customs and excise. I know because you are working on the borders of the nation, you also have a role in looking at health and safety, migration, securing the borders, working with the border force or the Minister for Immigration and so on as well. Digital, of course, we mean a lot of what we could call B2C activity, right? Business direct to consumer activity, e-commerce, using Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, all the big, Alibaba, the big digital platforms or digital suppliers. But also even in the regular tax base, even in what you might think of as within the country, we might have digital challenges, increased automation of jobs, increased use of digital investments, right? Crypto investments. I know that the Indonesian government has been reforming the tax treatment of cryptocurrency. And increased value in intangibles, goodwill, trademarks, intellectual property, which makes tax administration more challenging. So tax authorities, of course, can also try to improve their use of these technologies to improve administration and make compliance easier. So I won't spend more time on this. As I said, happy to share the slides. So of course, in Australia, we're a highly digitalized economy, not a very large population, as you know, compared to Indonesia, but very large geography. That might explain why we are so digitalized, because this helps us to connect with each other and with the world. So we have very highly digitalized use of internet programs, use of platforms, and so on. So it makes it a very urgent issue for us in the tax world. In businesses as well, they are very highly digitalized. Most businesses, even small businesses in Australia, are highly digitalized. Indonesia is also pretty highly digitalized. I know I have had some visits to talk with international tax people in Indonesia over the last few years, and you have a very large and very fast growing digital market, right? Digital consumer access. And it's good that the Indonesian government is trying to get ahead of the issue, right? By reforming the tax system. Similarly, both countries are quite highly globalized. Australia a little more than Indonesia on these. This data is 5 years old though, right? Okay, so I'm going to just highlight a couple of developments, and I think I'll only touch on my next few slides. The biggest development that we have seen in international tax in the last 5 years in kind of multilateral agreement processes, multilateral negotiation, has been what we call BEPS, right? This is a cooperative process led from the OECD, but increasingly broad in the number of countries which are interested in dealing with how to tax the global digital economy. I know that as a member of the G20 and active participant, Indonesia has been closely involved in the digital economy negotiations in BEPS, the tax negotiation. So in particular, how can we have this effective multilateral report? So the previous version, this is a few years old, by 2020, there was a proposal to try to come up with a new international tax system for corporations. But actually the first progress that was made is actually in sales tax, not in corporate tax. And this overlaps to some extent with the work of, I think, customs and excise, certainly in Australia. Australia decided to reform the GST law, right, the goods and services tax, to try to capture tax on cross-border B2C transactions. So sales consumption taxes, you buy goods or you download digital streaming movie or television from Netflix, or you buy goods on a platform. Australia was a first mover, right, early mover in reforming the law to capture B2C transaction in the country where the customer is, where the consumer is located. So when we have inbound transactions, and I'm pretty sure Indonesia is already also reforming the law in this way. So we have GST now, imports of low value goods, and also imported services and digital products. So this was a pretty recent development, commenced in 2018, 2020. It's been quite successful for the government. Right? They have raised quite a lot of revenue. So yeah, only starting for low value goods, you know, historically, this was too difficult to administer. You can imagine in customs and excise, you have thousands of packages coming into the country, low value purchases, like one book on Amazon, this kind of thing. So previously, this was not taxed. But since 2017, 2018, now we are requiring the platform, digital platform offshore, has to collect the GST and pay to the Australian tax office. So we have extended the jurisdiction. So we had the vendor platform. I won't go through the example, but the vendor platform, the offshore platform, has to register and pay the tax. The biggest question, interesting question here, of course, is will they comply? How do you make the offshore platform comply with the tax law? Initially, they were not happy, right? So an interesting tax reform story. Initially, Amazon, for example, they said they would withdraw from Australia when we enacted the law. But 6 months later, they changed their mind. So the big offshore platforms are complying with the extended law. So this is one of those key issues that countries around the world are now extending the tax obligation to the large offshore vendors. If I turn very quickly to corporate tax, what we have seen is problems with avoiding tax with the very large multinational corporations, the very large multinational enterprises, including the tech companies, the FANGs, right? Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and so on. And so we have this problem that it is difficult to identify how much of the profit is taxable in the country and what is the connection with the country so the country can tax. And I know Indonesia is also facing these issues as well as Australia and all other countries around the world. So no unified approach. So one example is that some countries are developing what we call a digital services tax. This is a tax that will be levied on the large corporate for any digital activity in the jurisdiction where you have consumers in the jurisdiction. What we see most recent, so for example, European Commission proposed a digital services tax. The United States is not happy with this development, right? Because they see it as discriminatory against the big US tech companies. And so we have a multilateral negotiation now that President Biden is still involved with. We have this new deal with two pillars to have a global minimum tax and global taxation of super profit of the big digital companies. So I think I'm going to leave it there, but the idea is that we have this global tax at the top of the largest global countries for the market jurisdiction. So Indonesia stands to benefit somewhat from this because you have a big digital market, growing market. So Indonesia over time will get some of the revenue from this multilateral tax. So I'm conscious of time. We can always answer more questions, but I think what I will do is stop the presentation there so that you can hear from the other speakers, and I'm happy to discuss any issues later. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Miranda. Now I will give the floor to Dr. Michal. Dr. Michal, the floor is yours.
Thank you. That is great. Just sharing my slides. Hopefully everyone can see them now. Here we go. Great. I just wanted to say or begin with saying thank you to everyone here today. It is such an honour to be part of this Milisi seminar with the Indonesian Customs Office. We are so pleased, and I wanted to say a special thank you to Pak Nugroho for the invitation. Thank you very much. And also a special thank you to Anita for sharing her great knowledge on the cooperative relationship that we have between Indonesia and Australia. It was wonderful to hear of the history that we have together. So thank you very much. And I'm here today as the Program Director of the Master of Professional Management at the University of Melbourne. I'm also the Program Director of the Unilever Business Academy with Unilever Indonesia. So I spend quite a lot of time working with our Indonesian colleagues, and I do hope to visit someday. But today we are going to just be focusing on the Master of Professional Management. And I wanted to present this to you today because it is a brand new course. We are very, very pleased with our Master of Professional Management. It's only been in the market for about 12 months or even less. And we developed the Master of Professional Management from the ground up, with the understanding that no matter where you are in an organisation, whether it be a for-profit organisation like Unilever Indonesia, who I work with, or whether it be a government organisation or a faith-based organisation, wherever you are, as a manager within that organisation, we are constantly under the influence of change and complexity. Our jobs are becoming far more complex. We're working in incredibly complex environments, and those environments are changing. And so it was with this understanding of the change that is happening within the workplaces that we have designed the Master of Professional Management from scratch. And so I guess the core foundation to what is required of a manager in today's workplace is becoming incredibly complex. And so what we understand in terms of the expectations of managers today and the competencies that are required of managers today is that increasingly they are working within complex environments, they are managing teams, they are managing operations, and underpinning all of that is the need to have a highly performing team within an environment that is incredibly lean. So more than ever before, we are expecting our managers to perform and perform at a very high level, to have their teams performing at a very high level, and yet they have to do more with less in environments that are lean and leaner and leaner. And so on the one hand, our managers are juggling this higher expectations to do more with less and to have really high performing teams. And on the other hand, the expectations of managers within organizations have expanded to include leadership. And so managers are now expected to lead from where they are. So managers who in the past were able just to focus on their teams, focus on their operations, are now expected to also work at a strategic level and to lead their teams. And so because of this changing environment that managers are working within, they need new competencies. There have to be new generation managers. And on top of that, these managers need to manage in a way that is ethical, that is sustainable, and really leaning into the talk that Miranda just gave, the role of digital data analytics and artificial intelligence is just growing. It's not enough to be able to, kind of get someone else to come in and do that data analytics and artificial intelligence for you as a manager. You now need to have a working knowledge of how that actually works. And so understanding of digital data and analytics and artificial intelligence is just becoming an expectation for our new generation manager. And so because of that, we have developed the Master of Professional Management. Now, what makes this Master's somewhat different to other Masters that we have and have had in our portfolio of educational offers for some time is that the Master of Professional Management is completely online. It is a digitally enabled Master's, and it is only available to people who have a minimum of 3 to 5 years working experience as a manager or as a professional. So you need to have been in the workplace working at that managerial level for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. And so the types of subjects that we are offering within this new structure and this new program online include subjects such as adaptive leadership, managing teams, being able to engage and negotiate with internal and external stakeholders, manage relationships of conflict. Artificial intelligence is going to be a really big part of what people do now and in the future in their workplace. And so we also have a subject around artificial intelligence in organizations that also brings in ethics and governance as well, that leads quite nicely into Miranda's talk. We also look at how we can manage our teams, to manage the talent within the team, how we can manage our teams to ensure that we are, whether it be people power or whether it be operational, making sure that we're managing those resources to deliver high performance. And we also bring strategy in as well, which is a new competency that a lot of managers haven't necessarily had to engage with in the past, but all managers are now expected to work at a leadership and strategic level, as well as manage their day-to-day operations and in an environment where they have to do more with less. So that's just an overview of the types of subjects that we offer within the Master of Professional Management. And so it doesn't really matter where you come from. We are very much a master's program that, as I said, is digitally online. We offer it to an international cohort who might come from business, who might come from government, who might come from non-government organisations. right across the board, a very, very diverse student cohort. It's delivered digitally, so you have online classes. We also do live face-to-face workshops in the online environment, quite similar to the way we are doing today. And we have a very big focus on what we call work integrated learning and assessment. And so this is where you do a lot of your case study work, a lot of your assessments are based on the work that you're doing today in your own organisation to ensure that your learning is relevant and you're delivering value to the organisation through your learning. So as I said, our student cohort are already in the workplace. They have a minimum of 3 to 5 years managerial and professional experience as managers and professionals and leaders within their organisations. And what we bring to the program, in addition to leading edge knowledge and leading cutting edge knowledge sharing, is we bring expertise. And so this program has been delivered and developed from the ground up with the input of industry thought leaders right across a variety of government and non-government industries, as well as we bring together a world-class academic leadership team to deliver our new Master of Professional Management from the University of Melbourne. So that was really just a very quick snapshot of our new program, and I really look forward to answering any questions that you might have when we come to the Q&A session at the end. So once again, thank you so much for inviting us along to the seminar today.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Michal. Now, I will give the floor to Professor Hall. Professor Hall, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So let me share my screen first, and just want to double confirm whether you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Perfect, perfect. So I'm very pleased to be invited along with Miranda and also Michal to give an overview of our master courses. And at the beginning, I would like to just try to summarize the 3 commonalities between the Indonesia and Melbourneian people. From the speeches at the beginning, especially from Anita's speak, I can find that all of us aim high and target at continuous improvement, and we are all superstar. So this was proved by my PhD students, who is also from Indonesia, working closely with me, and who has all these 3 characteristics. Right, myself, I don't think I need to introduce myself anymore. So in these, the following slides, I would like to give you a brief background of the Master of Supply Chain Management. What are the 6 uniqueness or the characteristics, and at the same time, why this course is popular and practical. And at the end, I would like to share with you the course structure. In the other words, what you will learn from us if you would like to take this program. So same as Michal's Master of Professional Management, this Master of Supply Chain Management is brand new, is only 2 years old, first developed it and launched in 2020 at the start of the COVID pandemic. So it is a 100% online program. So we target at work experience, so busy professionals who have at least worked in supply chain management or logistics management for 3 years. So we also have to try to make the learning materials more real-world focused, and at the same time, in order to give you more idea what's happening in real world, not only private but also public sectors, and give you the real world good practices. At the same time, try to have you think more about out of the box, what could be done further and better for your organization. So as Michal mentioned, our program will also incorporate the work integrated assignment. That means we do not heavily rely on the learning materials. It is not textbook based, but we will focus on the field project. That means you will have to work, select a topic or a supply chain problem being faced by your organization, let's say Indonesian Customs Department, and what we can and how we can further improve the supply chain management or process improvement for your organization. So all the subjects, especially supply chain management, will be delivered in a very interactive and engaging learning management system, which is a virtual called Incendi. So later on, I will give you some screenshots how Incendi works. Overall, this Master of Supply Chain Management is practical, timely, and value-added. As I mentioned, there are 6 reasons or 6 benefits of this program. So before COVID, I don't think there are many people know what is exactly supply chain, but thanks to the limited supply of tissue papers at the beginning of COVID, there are many of you understand, what is supply chain. The most terms that you may have heard is a supply chain crisis, supply chain disruption, this kind of dark side of supply chain. But indeed, there are lots of things that you can learn from supply chain. So in this course, we'll cover both core and contemporary subject. As you can see on the left-hand side, we'll focus on the strategies for helping organization to proactively predict and also plan for some responsive strategy to deal with some uncertainties. As Michal also mentioned, organizations are nowadays facing the same issue or asking the same question, how to do more with less. So in this program, there are lots of subjects. For example, supply chain analytics will be delivered in order to help our students to make the best decision with limited resources, for example, limited time, budget, human resource, but still try to further continuously improve the internal and external processes. At the bottom right of this slide, you can see the triple bottom line. They're very important, especially social and also environmental sustainability. So our program will also aim to cover these kind of topics. Especially we have a subject called sustainable supply chain management. So you will learn a lot of different things, how to monitor or visualize a very complicated or globalized supply chain that can still meet the environmental and social sustainability standards. So secondly, we have the teaching team have a very good connection with not only the experienced practitioners or senior level supply chain and managers, but also we have a good connection with eminent scholars across the world. For example, I invited Bessie Carrington, who has more than 30 years in procurement, and also Professor Sri Talluri, who is a chair professor in Michigan State University. So they also have to enrich the learning and teaching materials of our program. As I mentioned, our teaching material not only based on textbook, instead we look for different timely, updated, good practices from across the world. For example, DHL, for example, Walmart. There are lots of good practices to be shared in the classroom. And also, we are not telling our students this is the best. However, we inspire our students. What are the potential room for improvement for this kind of company, and what we can learn from this organization to your own organization to make changes. These are the screenshots that I mentioned for Incendi. Incendi is a virtual learning environment, very similar to Blackboard, very similar to Canvas, but it is a very interactive. That means you will not only learn from the lecturers, but also you can initiate a discussion or to take the lead of the discussion, and also to conduct some very fruitful knowledge sharing, and also to build up your professional network. As I mentioned earlier, all the students have work experience in this area. Next, we have very diverse, gender-balanced teaching team. We are for male, for female, and all of us have a very good network with industry. We have extensive consultancy experience with national and global companies, and we are research active. That means we will feed our research findings into in order to update our teaching material, in order to make sure that what you will learn is exactly novel and contemporary. Last but not least, I would like to emphasize that this program is being accredited by SIPS. As many of you have heard, the Charter Institute of Procurement Supply is the world's largest professional organization in this area. At the moment, there are more than 32,000 professionals working in this organization. So if you enroll in this program, you are affiliate member of SIPS. That means you can take advantage of the networking opportunities. You can get the information, the knowledge, and also the updated news from the procurement and supply world across the world. So as I mentioned, besides the strengths, I would also like to give you an overview of what kind of subject you are going to learn or you will learn from this program. So it is 150 points. So 50 points come from the foundation, especially for those who have no business and management background, to learn more about different areas. For example, how to deal with customers, how to better control the profit and loss, and so on. And then there are 50 points about the core subjects. From here, you will learn about some conventional supply chain topics, for example, supply chain models, procurement, supply management, and at the same time, you will learn some very novel part, for example, number 4, supply chain analytics. And then you will also have the opportunity to get exposure to other subjects. So you will have to take 20 points or 2 subjects from Michal's program, because we find that not only supply chain domains, you will, being a supply chain professional, you will also need to work with different people within and also across the supply chain. So managing people, taking leadership are very critical. Last but not least, another 25 points from the capstone subjects. For example, as I mentioned, sustainable supply chain management. And also there are some very interesting, exciting subjects, such as supply chain intelligence, supply chain technologies, such as AI, big data, blockchain, this kind of, or even artificial intelligence, machine learning. You will learn from this subject in order to help you understand how to make good use of the latest technologies for having your organization or custom department to further improve the process. Right, I think that's the end of my presentation. And once again, thank you for your listening, and I wish you all the best. So I stop sharing and hand it over to you, moderators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Hu. And again, thank you all speakers for the insightful presentation. There are so much things to talk about, and we are excited to have questions from the participants. But for the warming up, we would like to have some perspectives from Professor Miranda On tax challenges arising from digitalization of the economy, particularly on the trade of digital goods, such as streaming music and videos you have just mentioned, one of the heated debates in WTO when it comes to collecting national revenue from trade of such goods, are these digital goods classified as goods, services, or intangible goods, which finally have fiscal implications such as customs duty and tax? And then should the revenue collection of those digital goods be carried out separately by a single administration, either customs or tax authority, or by both, in the context of trade facilitation, securing national revenue, and customs control? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, these are really good questions. And I think what the question illustrates is the changing nature of what you would think of as valuable goods, right? From what we used to think, this is definitely a good, this is like a physical book, for example, that you buy. You might buy it digitally, you might buy from an offshore platform, but it's a physical book that arrives in the mail. So you're kind of in the excise world, right? You're in the traditional trade world, even if it's a contemporary digitalized supply chain, as William has explained. Or is it an ebook? So now this is an intangible, but what you have, what you pay for is really a license. It might be a license of the copyright or of the single-use kind of valuable book, or perhaps we would say you're paying for a service to be delivered to you. And this, it actually shows the role, I think, of law, because a lot of the consequences, as you say, the revenue consequences or the administrative consequences, which department is involved, which regime collects, and so on, depends on the legal character of the contract, the sales contract. Is it a sale for trading goods? Is it a single-use license for licensing or utilizing intellectual property like copyright? In which case you're in the IP part of the trade world, and you might be in the income tax or sales tax part of the revenue system. Or is it delivery of a service where you have someone offshore delivering something to you, servicing, providing a specific service thing? For us, that would change. You might still be in income tax or sales tax, but the rules will be different. Okay, so you raised a complex mess, I guess. And what we see, which affects income tax, sales tax, and I guess also trade and excise, is we see a shift of value out of physical goods into intangibles and services. This might make it harder to track, although we can usually still identify the price, right? The ultimate price. But it also might change the actual tax law which is going to be applied. Which administration, you know, this is, I don't think I can answer this question. Different countries do it differently, right? And even for GST in Australia, for example, the GST is levied by the, you know, administered by the tax office, the revenue agency, like the Director General of Taxes. But the exclusions like tourist shopping, this sort of thing, the exemption is administered by the border force, by customs. So you actually have both agencies involved in the administration. I'm not sure if my colleagues have any comments on this difficult, this change that we see.
Okay, I think there is one questions which could be the, how to say, the continuations of the questions raised by Pak Firman. He from, I don't know, Bulgaria, the name is Bulgaria. So to Professor Miranda, from your point of view, what is the potential of Indonesia and Australia in developing collaborative international tax policy, especially in digitalized world?
I think there is a lot of potential, actually. And you already heard from, I think it's Iskandar, about the arrangements in the customs excise area. Indonesia in the G20 and part of the inclusive framework on international tax, and also in the VAT forum. These forums now have more than 100 countries involved. Sometimes 140 countries in the world are included in these multilateral forums. The Indonesia-Australia bilateral tax treaty is quite old now, negotiated some decades ago. It shows a long-standing relationship. But perhaps this is something that the two ministries should get together and have a talk about whether to modernize some of the bilateral cooperation. But both Indonesia and Australia are working hard in the multilateral area, right? Agreeing multilaterally. And then I think they can do the side agreements to help with the administrative cooperation. And I think there is a lot of potential to improve this administrative cooperation.
Okay, I think it answers, but there will always be a complexity in enacting collaborative multilateral approach. I think in any policies here about Firman. Yeah. Okay, we have one people who raised their hand. Let me invite Mas Perwira Yodanto. Could you please? Do you have anything to ask to who?
Thank you. Pak Firman and Pak Halim
yes.
for the time. So I'm Wira from the Finance Profession Supervisory Center, Ministry of Finance. I was student of Professor Miranda Stewart a few years back in Crawford School, ANU. And good to see you today, Professor. It is also a pleasure to enjoy your lecture once more, and also from Dr. Carrington and Professor Ho. So in your presentation, you mentioned about BEPS and anti-BEPS measurement of G20 action plan. So my question is specifically on one of the action plan, the MDR, the Mutual Disclosure Rules or Regime, or in the European Union called DAC6 directive. So concerning BEPS, so how do you see the efficacy of these measurements since it is already implemented in some countries? And how do you see the urgency for Indonesia, whether to implement this measurement or not? If Indonesia is planning to adopt or adapt this measurement, what are the critical aspects for Indonesia that need to be assessed? Thank you for the time.
I think it's very critical questions. It proves that he is a Miranda Stewart student.
So if I answer it wrong, he will wish he will know that we will know that the student has passed the professor, right? Which is what we all aim for. You know, it's a difficult challenge for governments, isn't it? Which are involved in the whole BEPS program, 15 actions, and then the inclusive framework negotiation. There is a lot going on, so I don't think we have time to do the detail here. In terms of the exchange of information, sort of about rulings, I think this is your question, is about this idea of the revenue agency giving special rulings to taxpayers, which perhaps have a lower tax. And the idea is that governments should be disclosing these rulings to each other in order to facilitate international tax administration. As you say, it's adopted already in Europe. You know, I think probably Indonesia might be able to sign up without too many changes to your administration. Australia did sign up to the ruling exchange. I think this, I can't remember the action number now, maybe action 5 in BEPS. We did sign up for this, but we have not enacted any actual administrative or legal change to do it. So I guess the government has the rulings that it provides to taxpayers, and the government has the power to share these rulings confidentially with other governments if they wish to do so. So I guess Indonesia could choose to do this. I guess you need to weigh up, for like in the excise and customs, the issue is to weigh up the administrative burden, right, of complying with the international requirement to exchange information. You have to have some administrative cost, but perhaps you will also benefit from learning about the information that is given to multinational enterprises, the rulings from other countries. So I can't really answer that. I know it's a difficult challenge for the government. Usually I would say signing up probably more worthwhile than not signing up on balance.
Okay, I believe that's a proper answer, I would say, or we should extend more discussion on that. But anyway, we have discussed about the international tax development. We also discussed about the two programs in the University of Melbourne. There's a Master of Professional Management and Master of Supply Chain Management. So if you get any questions, feel free to ask from chat box, from Slido, or just simply raise your hand. Anyone would like to ask? Maybe Pak Firman has kept number of questions.
Well, I think it's very interesting to have information about Dr. Michal background on the marketing. So the question is, the development of women roles has been increasing globally in any organization. So promoting women roles in tax and custom administration to reach optimum organization performance has also been a long discussion. So referring to success stories from different organizations, are there any particular strategies to promote female roles at workplaces, considering cultural constraint arising domestically? Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. I guess when it comes to diversifying your employment base, whether it be around women or any other, I guess, marginalised group, it's about firstly understanding what are the root causes that are stopping women either from joining your workforce or making their way through the workforce. And those root causes will be different for every organisation and every culture. And so it's understanding, how do we develop women? We understand that developing women, bringing women into the workforce, diversifying our workforce, not only builds an internal culture that is more supportive, but also an internal culture that is more productive. And so we know from research that the more diverse your organisation, the more generally more successful your organisation will be. And so there are, I guess there are all sorts of reasons to do this. If we can understand what the root causes are that might be actually blocking women from being promoted through the organisation or blocking women from joining your organisation in the very beginning. And one of, I guess, if you talk about success stories, there's nothing like having a role model who is, I guess, who you can identify with and who you can relate with. And so if you're looking to bring women through the organisation, success stories are always abounding around ensuring that you are promoting women within the organisation so that other women have role models to work towards and to work with, ensuring that women are being sponsored in that organisation. And you might also, I'll give you an example from the University of Melbourne. One of the things that we do that has been highly successful here, because the academic profession is one that has always been a male-dominated profession, understanding that if we want to diversify the workplace here at the university, how do we do this? One of the ways that we do it is ensuring that our female academics are very well trained. And so we have specific programs for academic women in leadership to bring women through that leadership pathway, ensuring that women are well supported, ensuring that they have mentors within the university, and that women, and this is one of the things that women traditionally have not been part of, and that, I guess, are the informal networks. So every organisation has informal networks as well as formal networks, ways that decisions are made. So it can sometimes be informal and other times be formal. And so ensuring that women within the organisation are part of the informal networks as well as the formal ones, and are aware of how decisions are made in the organisation, not only formally through kind of the appropriate committees and meetings, but also are made informally, and making sure women are part of that is going to help women to change the organisation, to change the culture and bring other women through. And that's one of the things that the University of Melbourne have done very, very well in bringing women into those informal as well as formal networks and making sure the women are well developed. Hopefully that answers some of your questions.
It's a very interesting discussion, though. We talk about international corporations, international stacks. Now we touch into a gender equality, a very, how do you say, a wide topic, which is very interesting.
Topical. Very, yes, very interesting question. Very topical.
We have two more questions from Slido, but there's no name on it. This is anonymous. The first one, I think it should go to Michal and Miranda, or maybe I think it's Michal. What are the biggest, is there any specific approach in managing dynamics millennials within organizations? From
that
women
is a
now
question.
To millennials. Very interesting topic
absolutely.
Brought by the
It is such an interesting question. And I think that's a challenge, it's always a challenge, whether it was Generation X's, kind of 15 years ago, which I'm part of that generation, or whether it's millennials. There is always that intergenerational challenge. And remembering that millennials have not known a world without the internet. Millennials have not known a world without digital or without social media and Snapchat. And so understanding, how do we manage millennials and how do we get into their world? Well, from, I guess, a marketer's perspective, and putting that hat on, I would say that we always have to understand our customer. And so if our customer is a millennial, and it's someone that we want to bring into the organization, because millennials have a lot to give us, and particularly around their flexibility, their agility. They're very adaptable. They are also incredibly digitally savvy in a way that previous generations aren't. And so there are many positives to bringing millennials into the organization. They're very open-minded. They tend to think in very different ways. So from a marketer's perspective, we would always say, understand them. So, and then we are able to motivate them. So if we don't understand who they are, if we don't understand their core motivations, and we don't understand why they want to work with our organization, it's very difficult to keep them, and then to ensure that we're getting the best from them, understanding what their potential is, and then bringing them to achieve their highest possible potential. So it's very much understanding what motivates a millennial and being open to the fact that it might be something very different to what motivates you. And I'll give you an example that William spoke about in his talk when he was talking about the supply chain, Master of Supply Chain Management. William focused quite specifically on the sustainability element of supply chain and the subjects that he brings into that program around sustainability. One of the things that we're finding is very different about millennials to other generations that have come before them is that they want to work in an organization that they actually feel proud of and can identify with. This organization speaks to me and has the same values or very similar values to me. One of the values that millennials are bringing to the workplace is wanting to work somewhere that is very high when it comes to sustainability credentials. They don't want to work in an organization that is unethical and isn't maintaining that high level of sustainability, whether it be around people or be around planet. And so one of the things that we are seeing popping up in organizations increasingly now is if you want to keep your millennials, you need to be able to show to those people who work for you that your sustainability credentials and your ethical credentials, it's becoming incredibly important to this generation, far more than previous generations. And millennials will actually choose where they want to work at and who they want to work for based upon a whole lot of criteria, and money's not just one of them. One of them is absolutely around value systems and sustainability.
Okay, if I may highlight, it means that the flexibility of these millennials should be followed by the dynamics of organizations. So I think it's very important to be sensitive to learn about the value that is being proposed by these millennial generations. Well, I'm millennials actually. Anyway, Pak Firman, we have Mbak Ika Kardian Rahmatullah. I think from DGT, is it? Or from, yeah. Anyway,
Legal
time is yours.
Bureau.
Oh, Legal
Thank you.
Bureau. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you move? Or
No. Good
I should
evening.
say hello to Miss Aika.
Yeah, hello Miranda. So like the previous one, I'm also your student, Miranda, last year in Melbourne Law School. So I would like to ask about the implementation of Pillar 1. As we know that currently there is no international tax law in place, so I assume that for Pillar 1 to be implemented, each country should enact its domestic law in order to create legal authority to address tax-based creation or tax allocation. And in your opinion, is it possible for all countries to reach a global consensus, given or considering that there is always a political and fiscal concern at national level? Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time for our moderator, so you will tell us, of course, when it's time to wrap up. So very briefly, for those who are not the international corporate tax legends like Ika Ramatala actually is, the Pillar 1 is about the multilateral agreement to levy a kind of a global tax, if you like, and allocate the revenue to the market country where the consumers are for digital business and other global business. This includes normal trading business like the luxury goods, the very largest luxury goods corporations in the world. There will be some revenue going to the countries where people purchase these luxury goods. Actually, it's a multilateral treaty is the primary mechanism for Pillar 1. So if Indonesia or Australia decides we are going to join, we committed that we would join the consensus. Now we have to see the treaty and decide if we're going to sign up and ratify the treaty. Then, of course, we have to implement the treaty. It has to become effective. And then we probably, in Australia, we will need domestic legislation to implement the treaty. Indonesia may depend on your treaty relationship with your domestic law. And so then, you know, there are these international rules under the treaty about being able to access the revenue and actually administratively collect the revenue. It's a whole new world, even though it only affects the top, essentially top 100 multinational corporations in the world. Pillar 2, I think, then we really need domestic legislation. So this is like the minimum tax, 15% minimum effective tax rate with some exclusions for some tax incentives. And so we will all have to enact a domestic law. It's we're running out of time, I think, you know, because they are supposed to have enacted this before the end of this year, and we are already in May. So my guess is we're going to have some delays, but you're quite right. Both Indonesia and Australia will have to make a decision, persuade the domestic parliament to enact the law to levy the minimum tax. It's a big political challenge. But again, probably Indonesia, I would say, probably benefits from this deal overall. Indonesia will benefit. Some smaller countries that are important in supply chains, Singapore is an example, these countries may have less revenue. Anyway, great to meet you, and I'm conscious of our time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. Because we unfortunately have a very limited time, maybe the last person to ask questions, we have Mas Riki Dharma here from LNSW.
Yes, thank you, Pak Halim. Actually, I was about to ask Professor Ho a question, but I think he has to go to another meeting. But I was about to ask him about the condition of in the global condition regarding the COVID pandemic and the war on Russia and Ukraine. And how is it, in his perspective, regarding the supply chain management will affect, especially in Indonesia, regarding the supply chain management? That's what I was about to ask, but I think he has to go. So it's okay, Pak Halim.
Okay, William, are you still here? Or he has moved to another room?
Yeah.
Maybe just to close to replace the questions from Mas Riki, I will ask Mbak Marta Trisan, because she put one question in Slido. Would you like to ask your questions personally to Miranda here directly? Okay, she clarified that the question, here we go. Marta, are you there?
Yes, Mas Halim, sure. Yeah. Hi, Miranda. Actually, my question is the same with Ika has been questioned you before, but
okay. Marta, are you there? Okay, it's so unfortunate.
Is
the last.
Could you clarify if Australia will? Am I audible?
Okay.
Hello?
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Marta.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Mas Halim, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Miranda. Okay. So Miranda, in Indonesia we have digital service tax also. It's similar.
Marta, we lost you again.
Australia. So if the concept of Pillar 1 has been met and it issued this year, will be the test.
Okay.
Mas Halim.
Okay, if you have a problem with
Mas
your
Halim?
audio,
Okay.
can I just read your questions from Slido? I think it's more practical.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Miranda, the questions from Marta. We are still waiting for the Pillar 1 to meet its consensus and regulated internationally. What Australia will do if Pillar 1 has been issued? I think that's the question.
I got the question. So sorry, I forget the end bit. What will Australia do if Pillar 1
has been issued? Has been issued.
It is issued or is not?
Has been issued or met the consensus this year. Does the GST still exist? The GST, does your GST is still exist?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, the GST will still apply, and the same can be the case for Indonesia, I would think, right? You can still levy the sales tax on offshore digital supplies, offshore low-value goods, right? There's no problem with this, with Pillar 1. What you are talking about is the need to abolish what they call digital services taxes, right? That unilateral DSTs will be abolished if you sign up for Pillar 1. So I think what Indonesia is calling the DST is more like a sales tax. So I think the sales tax will be okay. But you're right, this is a big issue for countries, right? That can they continue with taxing the digital companies in some way, even after they agree with Pillar 1 on multinationals. I just read some news that Denmark, the country Denmark, is going to levy 6% tax on digital streaming services. 6%, quite a high rate on the revenue from digital streaming. They say that this will be consistent with Pillar 1. They will design it for public policy, domestic cultural content. They say they can do it even after Pillar 1. So I think it's an interesting question whether this is controversial or not. I'm sorry I didn't hear William Ho's answer to the supply chain question before. I'm quite interested to know the issue with supply chains in COVID. I guess people can learn about this in his program, his course as well. So it's a good question, Martha. Yeah, it depends on the detail. whether countries can continue to have a digital tax of some kind, I guess.
Thank you,
Great.
Miranda.
Thank you
very much.
Miranda. Thank you, Marta. So, Pak Firman, actually, we still have many questions to pose, but unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's conversations, I believe. It's almost, I think, nearly 2 hours, nearly 90 minutes, I would say. But certainly, we have had so much invaluable information on international tax development, on gender, on millennials, on many topics that we have never anticipated before. Also, the related program at the University of Melbourne that may encourage all participants, particularly from millennials, from young generations, to pursue higher degree at the University of Melbourne in particular, and in Australia in general. Thank you to all the speakers, Professor Miranda, Dr. Michal, Professor Ho, Bu Anita, and everyone who has become the participant of this Milisi. And special thanks to Mbak Emmy and Mbak Mary from the University of Melbourne, Indonesia, who has been trying to arrange this event actually since last year. And finally, we had this particular event. So thank you everyone for supporting this program. See you next time and have a great, lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone, thank you Miranda. Udah hilang. Makasih semuanya ya, luar biasa.
Keren Pak Bos, keren.
Ayo Riki, gabung Ki.
Ngeri ada Pak Halim Jiper saya sama Mas Halim saya.
Enggak, lu gabung sama Pak Firman, kemalili tapi.
Aduh.
Cocok Pak, cocok.
Cocok,
saya dukung itu.
Amin. Ada yang amin tuh, Yunanto.
Aduh, jangan dong.
Amin. Thank you semua ya, thank you udah mau asar di Makassar.
Terima kasih Pak, keren.
Thank you.